modeling users, personas, and goals. Modeling users, personas, and goals. Once you have spent some time out in the field investigating your users' lives, motivations, and environs, the question naturally arises: how do you use all this great research data to forge a successful product design? You have notebooks full of conversations and observation, and it is very likely that each person you spoke to was slightly different from the others. It is hard to imagine digging through hundreds of pages of notes every time you need to make design decisions. How do you prioritize? We solve this problem through the concept of model. So the way we actually identify what are the key research on the data that we've gathered from goal-oriented design is through model. Why model? Models are used in the natural and social sciences to represent complex phenomena with a useful abstraction. Good models emphasize the salient features of the structures and relationships they represent, and they emphasize the less significant details. So, because of those complex information from environment variables, demographic, persona, hypothesis, and different variables and stakeholders, we need to prioritize. So, this model actually find the 5% that produce 95% of the result. Because we are designing for users, it is important that we can understand and visualize the salient aspects of their relationship with each other, what they want with their social and physical environments, and of course, with the products we hope to design. Thus, much as economists create models to describe the behavior of markets, and physicists create models to describe the behavior of subatomic particles, we have found that using our research to create descriptive models of users is a uniquely powerful tool for interaction design. So that's like an economist that create model for markets. This model actually is a powerful tool for interaction design field. We call this user model personas. Personas provide us with a precise way of thinking and communicating about how groups of users behave, how they think, what they want to accomplish, and why. So it allows us to provide the most important users at the same time. What are the most important behavior? What is the most important thinking, or what is the most important thing that they want to accomplish, and what is their most important why? Personas are not real people, but they are assembled from the behaviors and motivations of the many actual users we encounter in our research. In other words, personas are composite archetypes based on behavior patterns uncovered during the course of our research. By using personas, we can develop an understanding of our users' goals in specific contexts. So, based on our goals, business goals, we can harmoniously integrate that based on a specific context. A critical tool for ideating and validating design concepts. So, on that context that we were trying to improve, such as that feature on a website application, how could we redesign that in a way that will help us achieve our goals? So, this is a powerful tool for that. Personas, like many powerful tools, are simple in concept but must be applied with considerable nuance and sophistication. Although other user models can serve as a tool for interaction designer, such as workflow models and physical models, we found that personas are the most effective and fundamental of these tools. So later we will discuss the workflow and physical models that could incorporate this, but personas are the 5% that operate 95%. Also, it's often possible to incorporate the best of these other modeling techniques into the structure of your persona. The power of personas to create a product that must satisfy a diverse uh, audience of users, logic may tell you to make its functionality as broad as possible to accommodate the most people. This logic, however, is flawed. The best way to successfully accommodate a variety of users is to design for specific types of individual with specific needs. So that's why you need the context for that. You're trying to really uh, design with the least amount of resources with the right people as possible, so you can get the potential users and the uh, most important users get on and then achieve their goal. Once they achieve their goal and be more productive, therefore your product will achieve more revenue. So uh, the reason is that when we fail to recognize that persona that we want to satisfy, is we actually uh, waste resources and end up adding excise to the one we are actually wanting to help. So therefore, once we redesign that feature on a web application, it ends up losing revenue rather than adding. When you broadly and arbitrarily extend the product's functionality to include many constituencies, you increase the cognitive load and navigational overhead for all users. Figure 3.1, if you try to design an automobile that pleases every possible driver, you end up with a car with every possible feature that pleases nobody. So you loses the customer. Software today is too often designed to please too many users, resulting in low user satisfaction. Figure 3.2 provides an alternative approach, facilitates that may please some users, will likely interfere with the satisfaction of others. So here, by designing different cars for different people with different goals, specific goals, we can create designs that other people with needs similar to our target drivers also find satisfying. So based on the most important customer that actually are served using our strengths or products, we can double down on that and then attract more potential users. So these are based on the principle that we are all different, so we can please everyone because we increase the cognitive load once we uh, make everybody happy. The same holds true for the design of digital products and software. So here, Alessandro's goals: go fast, have fun. Uh, March goes, be safe, be comfortable. Dale's goes, hold big loads, be reliable. So the key to this approach is to first choose the right individuals to design for based on your product and strengths. Users whose need best represents the need of a larger set of key constituents, see figure 3.2. Then you prioritize these individuals so that the needs of most important users are met without compromising our ability to meet the needs of secondary users. Personas provide a powerful tool for communicating about different types of users and their needs, and then deciding which users are most important to target in the design of form and behavior. So we're technically trying to define who are users that using that feature on our web application, for example, and identifying that based on personas and identifying which user of that is we are actually being served, the most served by our product and has the most revenue based on our business goals. So the key to this approach is to first choose the right individuals to design for. Users whose need best represent the needs of a larger set of key constituents. Then you prioritize these individuals so that the need of the most important users are met without compromising our ability to meet the needs of other secondary users. So if you don't want to lose the revenue, you want to meet the primary users or primary users goals, while at the same time not compromising the business goals and the secondary persona or the secondary goals. Kind of like trying to serve the beginners, the intermediate, or the beginners are those the potential intermediate users or the potential users, and the expert as well. So personas provide a powerful tool for communicating about different types of users and their needs, and then deciding which users are the most important to target in the design of form and behavior. Strengths of personas as a design tool. The persona is a powerful. So actually, this persona will determine the form and behavior in industrial design and visual design and interaction design. Now, strengths of personas as design tool. The persona is powerful, multi-purpose design tool that helps overcome several problems that plague the development of digital products. Persona help designers to do the following: determine what a product should do and how it should behave. Persona goals and tasks provide the foundation for the design effort. So the persona, the most important user's goals and the task to achieve that goal are the foundation of the design effort. So, but first you need to determine what a product should do and how it should behave to achieve the persona's goal to their liking. Communicate with stakeholders, developers, and other designers. Personas provide a common language for discussing design decision and also help keep the design centered on users at every step in the process. It also helps with communication with stakeholders, build consensus and commitment to the design. With a common language comes a common understanding. Personas reduce the need for elaborate diagrammatic models like a user flow for task model. It's easier to understand the many nuances of user behavior through the narrative structures that personas employ. Put simply, because personas resemble real people, they're easier to relate to than feature lists and flowcharts. Measure the design effectiveness. Design choices can be tested on persona in the same way they can be shown to a real user during formative process. Although this doesn't replace the need to test with real users, it provides a powerful reality check tool for designers trying to solve designer problems. This allows design iterations to occur rapidly and inexpensively at the whiteboard, and it results in a far stronger design baseline when it's time to test with actual people. Contribute to other product or related efforts such as marketing and sales plan. The authors have seen persona repurposed across their clients' organization, informing marketing campaigns, organizational structure, customer support center, and other strategic planning activities. Business units outside of product development want sophisticated knowledge of a product's users and typically view personas with great interest. So business use it outside of our design team actually interested of sophisticated knowledge or detailed knowledge with their customers. Also the developer as well will be more motivated. The customer support will be more motivated, and the marketing department. So design pitfalls that personas help avoid: the elastic user. When it's time to make a product decision, this user becomes elastic, conveniently bending and stretching to fit the opinions and presuppositions of whoever is talking. If the product development finds it convenient to use a confusing tree control containing nested hierarchical folders to provide access to information, they might define the user as a computer literate power user. So the developer has a different motivation again with the designer. So they will define the user as computer literate. Other times, when it is more convenient to step through a difficult process with a wizard, they define the user as an unsophisticated first-time user. Designing for the elastic user gives a product team license to build what it pleases, while still apparently serving the user. Of course, our goal should be to design products that appropriately meet the needs of real users. Real users and the personas representing them are not elastic, but instead have specific requirements based on their context, goals, abilities, and abilities. Even focusing on user roles or job titles is a problem. If you have any experience in a hospital, you know that trauma nurses, pediatric intensive care nurses, and operating room nurses are quite different from each other, each with their own attitudes, aptitudes, needs, and motivations. Nurses new to the role look at their work differently than nurses who are veteran to the job. So that's the different stages of life and different choices. So a lack of lifestyle choices, a lack of precision about the user can lead to a lack of clarity about how the product should behave. Self-referential design. Self-referential design occurs when designers or developers project their own goals, motivations, skills, and mental models onto a product's design. Edge cases. Another syndrome that personas help prevent is defining for edge cases. Situation that might happen but that usually won't for most people. Typically, edge cases must be designed in program form, but they should never be the design focus. So why are personas effective? One of the reasons personas are successful as user model is that they are personifications. They engage the empathy of the design and development team around the user goals. So they harmoniously empathize with the development team so that it could use their energy efficiently to achieve what really is the most important customer. Empathy is critical for designers who will be making their decisions about design frameworks and details based on the persona's cognitive and emotional dimensions as typified by the persona's goals. So persona's goals actually have a cognitive and emotional dimensions that you need to consider because they are human. When personas have been carefully and appropriately crafted, stakeholders and engineers begin to think about them as if they are real human beings and become much more interested in creating a product that will give these personas a satisfying experience, which in turn helps their motivation to achieve more, invest resources. They also note the power of method acting as a tool that actors use to understand and portray realistic characters. This is actually how actors portray realistic characters. They use this as a method, as a tool to understand the characters they are trying to act. In fact, the process of creating personas from user observation and then imagining and developing scenarios from the perspective of these personas is in many ways analogous to method acting. So, personas used across multiple products. Organizations with more than one product often want to reuse the same personas. However, to be effective, personas must be context specific. They should focus on the behaviors and goals. They should focus on the most important because to boil down and to avoid the cognitive conflict and confusion with different contexts. Especially we're just trying to test a few things that is proven because as in the previous book trying to test two different variables in A/B testing is actually not efficient because you don't know which affect which because of the complex behavior of the environment. So they should focus on the behaviors and goals related to the specific domain of a particular product. Personas, because they are constructed from specific observations of user interacting in specific contexts, cannot easily be reused across products even when those products form a closely linked suit. For a set of personas to be effective design tool for multiple products, the personas must be based on research concerning the usage context for all these products using goal-directed design. Uh, in addition to broadening the scope of the research, an even larger challenge is to identify manageable and coherent sets of behavior patterns across all the contexts. So, a coherent, so how do you prove that those behavior are consistent in all across contexts? So, you really need to prove that, and it should be based on scientific analysis. You shouldn't assume that just because two users exhibit similar behaviors in regard to one product, those two users would behave similarly with respect to a different product. As the focus expands to encompass more and more products, it becomes extremely difficult to create concise and coherent set of personas that represents the diversity of real-world users. So because real worlds are complex, it becomes hard to really believe on that personas. We found that in most cases, personas should be researched and developed individually for different products. Archetypes versus stereotypes. Stereotypes usually are the result of designer or product team biases and assumptions rather than factual data. Because personas provide a precise design target and also serve as a communication tool for development team, the designer must choose particular demographic characteristics with care. So, because this has a context or precise target and has few overlapping variables, the designer would not base uh, their assumption on their personal biases. So ideally, persona demographics should be a composite reflection of what researchers have observed in the interview population, modulated by a broader market research, literature review, stakeholder, etc. Persona should be typical and believable. If the data is inconclusive or the characteristic is unimportant to the design or its acceptance, we prefer to err on the side of gender, ethnic age, and geographic diversity. So if it should be believable, uh, if the data is inconclusive or the characteristic is unimportant to the design, so you should err on the side of diversity to get multiple viewpoints. Again, the triangulation aspects that we've described in the previous book. Personas explore ranges of behavior. The target market for a product describe the demographics as well as lifestyles and sometimes job roles. What it does not describe are the ranges of different behaviors exhibited by members of the target market regarding the product and related situations. So ranges are distinct from averages. Personas do not seek to establish an average user. They express exemplary or definitive behavior within these identified ranges. So it's not an average user, but it's ranges. Um, ranges of different behaviors exhibited by different members in a complex adaptive market. So because products must accommodate ranges of user behaviors, aptitudes, and attitudes, designers must identify a persona set associated with any given product. So because you're trying to find these ranges and triangulation, you are more likely to find things that is proven true in all cases in or with different types of people. So multiple personas carve ranges of behavior into discrete clusters. So it carve ranges of behavior into discrete organization or category. Different persona represent different correlated behavior patterns. You arrive at these correlations by analyzing research data. So different personas has a different correlated patterns or the science that have been created based on that behavior. So you arrive at this correlation by analyzing the research data you got from goal-directed research. Personas have motivations. All humans have motivations that drive their behavior. Some are obvious, but many are subtle. It is critical that personas capture these motivations in the form of goals. This is not only point to specific usage patterns, but also provide a reason why those behavior exist. So it's not just a blank usage analytics, but also the real reason or motivation why those exist. Understanding why a user performs a certain task gives designer great power to improve or even eliminate tasks yet still accomplish the same goals. Personas can represent relevant non-users. It may be useful to create one or more customer personas for non-users or beginners, distinct from the set of user personas. Of course, this should also be based on behavior patterns observed through ethnographic research, just as user personas are. Similarly, for many medical products, patients do not interact directly with the user interface, but they have motivations and objectives that may be very different from those of the clinician using the product. Creating a served persona to represent patients' needs can be useful in these cases. Nearly all network software products have to take into account potential pranksters and malicious hackers, and sometimes for political reasons, you need to embody a persona for whom the product specifically does not intend to serve. Each of these types of non-users can be embodied in an anti-persona to have on hand in strategy, security, and design discussion. Personas are more appropriate design tools than other user models. Many other user models are commonly employed in the design of interactive products, including user roles, user profiles, and market segments. These are similar to personas in that they seek to describe users and their relationship to a product. User roles. A user role or model, as identified by Larry, is an abstraction, a defined relationship between a class of users and their problems, including needs, interests, expectations, and patterns of behavior. An abstractions generally taking the form of a list of attributes. They are not imagined as people and typically do not attempt to convey broader human motivations and context. So it's just an abstraction taking the form of a list of attributes. As abstractions generally taking the form of list of attributes, they are not imagined as people. It attempts to abstract various attributes and relationships from the people possessing them. We find these methods limiting for several reasons. It is more difficult to clearly communicate human behaviors and relationships in the abstract, isolated from the people who possess them. The human power of empathy cannot easily be brought to bear on abstract classes of people. Both methods focus on myopically on task almost exclusively and neglect the use of goals or motivation as an organizing principle for design thinking and synthesis. Halls and Bayer's consolidated models, although useful and encyclopedic in scope, are difficult to bring together as a coherent tool for developing, communicating, and measuring design decisions that will be accepted by stakeholders that prove to be in science, right? Persona address each of these problems. Well-developed persona describe the same types of behaviors and relationship that user roles do, but they express them in terms of goals and examples in narrative. This makes it possible for designers and stakeholders to understand the implications of design decisions in human terms or in story. Describing a persona's goals provide context and structure for a task, incorporating how culture and workflow influence behavior. In addition, focusing on user roles rather than on more complex behavior pattern can oversimplify important distinction and similarities between users. It is possible to create persona that represents the need of several user roles. For example, when a mobile phone is designed, a traveling salesperson also represent the needs of a busy executive who's always on the road. So they have the same need. So these patterns or complex behavior patterns can oversimplify important distinction and similarities between users. So it's possible to create a persona that represents the need of several user roles. For example, when a phone is designed, a traveling salesperson may also represent the needs of a busy executive who's always on the road. It is also possible that there are several people in the same role who think and act differently. So it's the same salesperson but has a different behavior patterns. Perhaps a procurement planner in the chemical industry thinks about her job very differently from a procurement planner in the consumer electronics industry. In consumer domains, roles are next to useless. If you're designing a website for a car company, car buyer is meaningless as a design tool. Different people approach the task in different ways. In general, persona provide a more holistic model of users and their context, whereas many other models seek to be more reductive. Personas can certainly be used in combination with these other modeling techniques.